You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Because this happened in the last 3 weeks. I'm making up for 5 years of not knowing.
What's up, people? Woo!
Oh, here we go.
We are live.
Yes. Hello, 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 hello. All right, everybody. Welcome to the watch party of the Hit List Podcast Network. I'm your girl, Lorena.
And I'm Lydia.
All right. So tonight, we're going to be reviewing Disney Plus's release of Hamilton, a live recording of the Broadway musical feature featuring most of the original cast. And tonight only, you better be watching because tonight only, we got 3 very special guests joining us, okay? We got Lisa, who's been a fan of Hamilton for a very long time.
Yeah, hey there, everybody. I'm really excited to be able to talk about Hamilton with somebody other than my poor husband, so.
All right, and we got my boy, Dwight. We go way, way back. Binghamton, upstate New York.
Yes.
System. Dwight is the West Coast director for Atlantic Records. What's up, Dwight?
What's up? How you doing? Glad to finally stop bothering everybody around me. That's like, I seen it 5 years ago, Dwight. But this is all I talk about for the last 3 weeks. So thank you I'm glad to be here.
All right, and last but certainly not least, we got my girl Grace from Atlantic Records, who was also the product manager for the Hamilton soundtrack. What's up, Grace?
How are you? Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm
so
excited
good
to be here.
All right, we're excited to have you. Let's roll the crick so you can see what we're gonna be talking about tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
The $10 founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter.
And the hope that you provide, may you always be satisfied.
This is Hamilton.
This is what we're here for. This is what we're here for tonight. Firstly, let me say Hamilton was originally planned for theatrical release October 15th of 2021. However, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the film had a digital worldwide release. Oh, hi, doggy. On Disney Plus on July 3rd of this year, which was truly, truly, truly smart on Disney's part because we're all home. We don't got nothing to do. It's like on Friday, you don't got nothing to do. What else you gonna do? To watch Hamilton. Now let's talk. So when and how were you first introduced to Hamilton? I'm gonna kick it to Dwight. And you're muted, Dwight.
Yeah, because the dog is going crazy right now. So you might want to come back to me.
Okay, let's kick it to Lisa.
Okay, yeah, so I'm a huge Broadway fan. I've been a huge Broadway fan my whole life, but my first exposure to Hamilton was through one of my students. I'm a middle school counselor, and so the kids would come in and hang out in my office all the time during break, and they were singing these songs all the time, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like Broadway, so I'm interested in. And one of the kids literally performed the entire Alexander Hamilton rap to me, just sat at my desk and said it all.
Wow.
And just as a gift, he gifted me the soundtrack, left it on my desk one day and said, you know, I want you to have this because I think you'd really like it. And it has lived in my car since that moment, years, just CD player, you know, old school stuff, and just put it in there. And that is where it's been ever since, and just been nonstop. Introduced it to lots of other people, spread the love, just huge fan.
Lynn, how about you?
Oh yeah, I saw it on Broadway, and I actually treated myself. It was a birthday gift to myself, and I went to see it on Broadway, and I felt like I was a kid. It was absolutely amazing. I was mesmerized the entire show. So yeah, that's how I was introduced to it.
Mm-hmm. Grace?
My first introduction, I was actually not working at Atlantic. I was working at Rock Nation / Tidal. And it was the weekend that Jay and Beyonce had gone to see the show. It was very like publicized, as I'm sure everyone remembers. And Jay came back and was like, I want to do something with Hamilton for Tidal. He didn't say those words directly to me. It like clearly made its way down. But it was like, it fell on my lap and I was like, what in the world am I supposed to do with Hamilton? Like, I had heard about this hot show. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I literally have no idea. So that was my first entry point. And then when I got to Atlantic, the original marketing person for the cast recording, I should also clarify that the music is not called the soundtrack. It is the original Broadway cast recording.
Thank you.
And I think, so there like two things I think I've learned through this process is there's a very big difference between a movie soundtrack and the original Broadway cast recording, which is very much an ode to the cast that actually spends days and, you know, hours perfecting, you know, what you see on screen. So I learned to say that. And then also, again, musical versus play. I think some of our mutual friends, Sydney and Brian, have heard me give this spiel quite a bit. So I think that's the first thing. But then when I got to Atlantic, I'll go back to that story. The original young woman who handled marketing was leaving. And this was in 2017. So, you know, they asked me if I wanted to take it over. And it was literally like right after the mixtape had dropped. And so one of the first things that they wanted me to do was to go see the musical on Broadway. I had amazing seats. Clearly, I knew a couple people. And because there was no way I was getting tickets any other way. Right. I had to know somebody. No, I'm just kidding. But my husband and I went and saw it on Broadway, instantly got it. I was like, okay, I get it now. But then I've seen the show a few more times since then. And my last time was actually in Puerto Rico when Lin reprised his role as Alexander Hamilton to raise money for Puerto Rico. So, so that was probably one of my last times actually seeing it on a stage. But you know what? As much as it's part of my job, I am very much a fan of the show as well.
Mm-hmm. For me, you know, I heard about Hamilton and I was like, what is this show? Because, you know, it opened up with me now living in Maryland. I used to live in New York. And so down here, folks were going up to New York to see this show. And I'm like, what is this show that I can't get tickets for? Like literally, I'm clicking the link and I cannot get tickets ever, like not the next year. And so the first time that I actually saw Hamilton was a few days ago on Disney Plus. And in the first, I'm going to tell you, like, first of all, I'm not like a Broadway musical person. Like, I don't want the whole show to be singing. I'm like, oh, here we go. The first 10 minutes. When the first song hit me, I paused it and went to Amazon and ordered the soundtrack. Literally. I mean, I went to Amazon and ordered it because I said, I need to have this. I need to have this music. And I literally was totally floored by what I saw. I mean, I could not have, no one could have described to me what I was going to see, what was taking place on my TV. And what Hamilton has done for the culture, what it has introduced to young people. I mean, we're going to get into that, but I was so impressed by the writing, by the music. I was blown away, blown away. Dwight.
Yes.
When were you, how and when were you first introduced to Hamilton?
It's funny. I was exposed to Hamilton because it was at the label, so I saw emails constantly about this play that we're doing the soundtrack of. So it was always on my radar. And at that time, I think it had to be like when did it get released? Like when was it at Joe's Pub? On Joe's Pub. When was it at Joe's Pub?
2015. It was the early part of 2015.
Okay. All right.
And then it didn't hit Broadway until August 2015.
Okay. So I had seen the emails and I was out in LA. So, and then I heard about, the whole spiel of it being hip hop and okay, cool. It was a, niche thing. I was interested, but I was in LA, didn't have a chance to, come to New York, get tickets. And when it came to LA, like I wasn't that much of a Broadway play person. I think the last one I saw was Lion King, like in the 90s. So it just wasn't top of mind. So I was fresh virgin Disney Plus. And I tell you, as a musical lover and as a hip hop head, I had seen nothing like this. I've watched it 6 times. I don't care who clowns me. I talk to everybody about it because I've never seen a marriage of hip hop, R&B, classic Brit pop, stage play, just at the essence, just really good writing. Like the musicianship blew me away, and this is all I can talk about. And the fact that it's so heavily hip hop influenced from all the New York references, from the Mobb Deep to the 10 Crack Commandments to ALEX, ANDER. I can't stop talking about it. I sing its praises. It's the most amazing thing I've seen in the last 10 years, and I'm not even exaggerating.
So Dwight and I, our first experience with Hamilton was on the TV, like Disney Plus, right? Not like stage. So if you've watched Hamilton on Disney Plus and have seen it live, do you feel there's like a difference in terms of like the feeling that you get? I can't describe it because obviously I've only seen it on TV.
Go ahead, Lisa.
No, I was gonna say I've seen it twice live. I've seen it once in my hometown of Atlanta, and then actually the last time I saw it was literally right before the pandemic struck on Broadway. So my sister and my best friend and I, we took a girls trip to New York on my spring break, and we were like, COVID, should we go? Should we not? Hell yeah, we're going. We got these Hamilton tickets like months ago because yes, you can't get them. You have to buy them months ahead of time. And so we went, and both seeing it in Atlanta with the touring company and then seeing it on Broadway, both are amazing, right? The Disney Plus film is amazing, and I'm so glad millions of people are able to see it that way and experience it. But there's something about live theater when you're in that spot with those performers right there, and that emotion and that energy is in the room, and you can feel it. It's just electric. And so while I'm glad we have the movie, you could see those, close-ups of the single tear and all that stuff you don't maybe get a chance to see in-house. There's just something about live performance, man. It's just, the talent is just remarkable. So I'm super lucky that I've got to experience it both ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Go ahead, Lydia.
Yeah, I was hesitant to watch it on Disney Plus because I saw it live. When you're in that theater and you're watching it go down and hearing it, like I said, I was like a kid, and I'm a rap hip hop head too. So when I would hear songs and be like, wait a minute, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was almost teary-eyed from happiness. Like, this is for the culture, and looking around like, does anybody know does anybody realize this is for the culture? Like, the feeling I had was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I was hesitant to watch it on Disney Plus because I thought, well, it can't match that. But I watched it and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a difference, but not a bad difference. I still got caught up in it, and the story and the music, the production, how it was. I still got caught up in it and still loved it. So there is a difference, but it's not like a bad difference. It's just different.
I think people forget with the live show, or I forgot, that with the live show, you can forget your lyrics. You can hit a bad note. Mm-hmm. You can miss your cue, and you see that sort of energy when you're in the theater. The other noticeable thing when I saw it for the first time was the entire audience, no shade, the entire audience is white. And to have an entire theater because of socioeconomic status, access, etc., all these other things, money, you notice like you're in this sea of white people, and the entire stage is filled with beautiful Black, brown, Latino, Asian like cast members. And so for me, being one of the few people of color in those seats, it was very moving and powerful to see people who represented something else. And I think I really, really loved seeing that. And Dwight's like, wait, I gotta interrupt. I don't know what he's gonna say.
No. Good, finish.
No, but then I also, like Lydia, when I got the news that this was coming to Disney Plus, like first I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be huge for the company. Dwight, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I was like, I'm gonna be busy till July, but it's okay because I am going to be busy during COVID. But I was also worried that you weren't going to be able to see those little quirks and those little things that make a show so beautiful and so organic. But kudos to Tommy Kail, because Tommy Kail directed the show. They filmed this over 3 days. I think and the cast just like nailed it. They did they taped during the day, did the Friday show, taped during Saturday, did the Saturday show. Like they blocked out a whole day to shoot this. Like they did this over and over the course of 3 days. And Tommy got every angle that you don't see. You know, the shot, especially when they throw the letters and you see that aerial shot of them spinning. You know, I think to Lydia's point, you get two different experiences. One is so theater, it's raw, there's mistakes and there's beauty in that, but then there is this very polished piece of art that they were able to deliver. And yes, to Lisa's point, the tear shed, the spit, the hair, you saw it all, and there was power in that too. Anyway,
and you know what was? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right.
No, go ahead.
Right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Well, it was just two things. First of all, I dreamed about being in the theater watching all these white people praise hip hop. It might not even know that they're praising hip hop. They're just saying, this is incredible. Look at the lyrical. I'm like, no, that's hip hop. So I wish I could have been there to witness that. And the two things that when I say I watched it 6 times, it's because I am obsessing, but there's two things because I have gone to plays. I watch it and first I watch like David and Renee, and because when they're not singing, they're doing choreography. They're part of the show. So I find myself going back watching them, and their focus, especially Leslie Odom Jr., who's just
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I can't sing his praises enough. So I go back and watch the individuals, and the one thing that I think doesn't come across in Disney Plus's presentation that I could only be caught live is the choreography. Like I tried to watch that as much again, but it's never pulled back enough to see it fully, but it's amazing. So those are the things I know you miss.
But you know what, Dwight? To the point about what you can see on the Disney Plus film that maybe you don't get the chance to see in live theater, there are a lot of things that are happening in the background that I didn't even realize because you're so enraptured in what's happening in the main characters, whatever's happening at that moment. Like there are times in the performance, like when Eliza is, singing "Stay Alive," and you see that actually Angelica comes over to her at the top and is like congratulating her and comforting her, as hasn't told Alexander yet that she's pregnant, because she's actually in the background up top. If you're not paying attention to those things in live theater, you miss those moments that are so rich and are so layered. And so you have an opportunity with this Disney Plus stuff to go back and to, like you're saying, look at different characters who maybe aren't the ones that are actually like singing at that moment, to see, because there are other things that are happening all over the place that add to the story, or facial expressions where you're like, ooh, that one hit that character in a different way, and it adds to the story, and it's all happening in the background, just like the choreography.
It's an Easter egg hunt. Like there are Easter eggs everywhere.
Dwight, real quick, let's pause and listen to one of the songs, the 10 Dual Commandments. Let's play that. We
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the 10 dual commandments. It's the 10 dual commandments. Number 1, the challenge, demand satisfaction. If they apologize, no need for further action. Number 2, if they don't, grab a friend, that's your second.
Your lieutenant, when there's reckoning to be reckoned.
Number 3, have your seconds meet face to face. Negotiate
Or negotiate a time and place.
This is commonplace, especially between recruits. Most disputes die and no one shoots. Number 4, if they don't reach a peace, that's alright. Time to get some pistols and the doctor on site.
You pay him in advance, you treat him with civility.
You have him turn around so he can have deniability. 5, go before the sun is in the sky. Pick a place to die where it's high and dry. Number 6,
Leave a note for your next of kin. Tell him where you've been. Pray that hell or heaven lets you in.
7, confess your sins. Ready for the moment of adrenaline. When you finally face your opponent. Number 8, your last chance to negotiate. Send in your second, see if they can set the record straight. Alexander,
Aaron Burr, sir.
can we agree the duels are dumb and immature?
Sure, but your man has to answer for his words, Burr.
With his life, we both know that's absurd, sir.
Hang on, how many men died because Lee was inexperienced and ruinous?
Okay, so we're doing this.
Number 9, look him in the eye, ain't no higher. Summon all the courage you require. Then count
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Number 10, paces, fire!
okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
You could not tell me. Okay, first of all, I was in here like I was mean loving to a Broadway musical song. Like, just that is so hard. What was your perception? Oh, go ahead, Lynn. Go quick.
One thing, when I was in the theater and this song, and when they did this song, and I was like, what? I almost ran out my seat down in the front, like, what? Go Biggie, go Biggie.
So the reason why I played this song is because for me, in thinking about like my perception and reaction, American reaction, other people's reaction to Hamilton, right? This Broadway play, telling the story of one of America's founding fathers using music, right? That draws heavily from hip hop. I felt like obviously a lot of the other songs personify that, but the 10 dual commandments, you cannot get any more hip hop than that. And what was your perception or reaction about this play telling the story of America's founding fathers using music for the first time, groundbreaking, that draws heavily from hip hop? Dwight.
One word, brilliant. I just thought it was brilliant. Like, this is the best Schoolhouse Rock episode I've seen in my life. Like, you make this thing look literally. First of all, I went and started watching a Civil War documentary. I'm thinking about watching the John Adams series on HBO. I'm interested in history in a way I've never been before. Literally, this is so entertaining. I wish this was out when I was in grade school. I probably would have aced my test 100.
Dwight, let me tell you, I work in a middle school. We absolutely use this in English class. They take the songs from Hamilton and make whole projects based off of it. That's how they're helping learn. So I can tell you firsthand, it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk to Dave about how I thought Schoolhouse Rock was really such a benefit, and this is that. Like, I mean to be funny, but it's also real. Like, it's the next level of that. Like, putting history to song and to rhyme to hip hop, brilliant.
Grace?
I think part of it is when you hear 10 dual commandments, like, again, going back to that theater experience, you kind of look around and like, you definitely don't know this is
right.
like big.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Right, yeah.
You're literally sitting there like,
Yes. Bursted. Like, what is
they're like, this is so original.
Yes. And you're looking around like, do y'all know? You don't know. You have no idea. Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the best part.
Yes.
Is that you're taking something that we all have loved and enjoyed and like delivering it in such a way that is so like a thief in the night, and one, you're just like, man, I love that these people are listening to Biggie and have no idea. But two, just like, again, the genius of Lin Manuel Miranda and how this wasn't like a, hey, 5 people. Yes, like there were other people involved, but this was not a 5 to 10 people or 20 people even writing one song like our current records on the radio. This was one man who wrote this from start to finish. And he deserves every accolade, every award, all of it. And it's just so incredibly beautiful. And the last thing is, when you're thinking of the fact that like this was a Biggie record, or a throwback to like a Biggie record, you're just like, you love that American history, which was so white centric, is now being told with like Black undercurrents, from the scope of people who like just like were just a big part of this story, this country's story, and did not have a voice and a way to tell it. And now you're just like, no, we're telling it. We're just telling it a different way, And I know that has other connotations and other things that we probably will address in this, show tonight, which I can talk about for another 5 hours. But like, but it's again powerful, moving, brilliant, to quote, Dwight.
Oh, if I can, Lorena, if I
Please.
can, one question to the ones that saw it in the theater. We're talking about hip hop moments, and yes, 10 Crack Commandments is huge, but please tell me the reaction during the cabinet battles. Please, I need to know what the crowd was saying, because that to me was the epitome hip hop moment. I was like, wow, they putting, like, I know some of them may have seen 8 Mile, but I just got to know what the crowd reaction was.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I wanted to talk about that, because you have the live mics when they come on and they actually do the battle, and it literally sounds different than the rest of the stuff that's happening. That live feel is so intense. And maybe it's just because I got hyped up for it. I don't know. But I'll tell you, I was literally on the edge of my seat every time for both cabinet battles, because it's that same way. And especially when he's like, gotta be out of your goddamn mind. The power in that, oh man, it was, I was loving it. So from my perspective, yes, there was definitely kind of that hyped up energy. Mm-hmm. Lydia, did you experience that?
Yeah. And like Grace said, so the majority of the audience was white. So there were moments, like Lisa was saying, you got hyped up. I mean, like amped. But I would look around and they were enjoying it, but it wasn't the same reaction, because to that, to another audience, that was there, they're like, oh, this is great. This is fun. This is original. But we know that where it's based from. So I felt special. I felt like I was in on a secret. You know what I mean? And that made me feel present. That made me feel seen. That made me feel like, oh my gosh, we're a part of this story. He's using our culture to tell this story. I felt like I knew a secret, and that just made me more amped than anything. But it was, I just would watch it, and like I said, I wanted to just run out of my seat and dance in the aisle. You know what I mean? And so, that was my experience with it. It was just awesome. And I love that I had that experience and I knew the basis of it. Like I felt good that I was in on that secret.
Mm-hmm. Grace, you were going to say something?
I don't even remember. I'm just like in the conversation now.
So Grace, you brought up a good point, right? This was all the brainchild of one person, right? So in my research, right, most folks thought what Lin Manuel was trying to do was a terrible, all caps, terrible idea. Even Renee Elise Goldsberry, who plays Angelica Schuyler, she didn't even want to audition. She was like, what is this? What is this? Even Leslie Odom, he's like, I think it's terrible. that you want to do a Broadway rapping musical about Alexander Hamilton. So with that in mind, like obviously Lin Manuel pressed forward. Were any of you surprised with how mainstream, not us, mainstream America embraced this hip hop Broadway show and how successful it became and has become? Grace, you were last talking. I'll let you go
No,
first.
I think, well, I'll start with my favorite story. And I think people know this story, but if you are new to the Hamilton Club, Dwight, one of my favorite stories is Lin years ago was invited to perform at the White House. He was invited by the Obamas to come perform for the White House. And Michelle talks about this in her book. He's like, yeah, I think I'm going to come and perform something, new that I'm working on. And it's a hip hop, musical about Alexander Hamilton and our founding fathers. And they were like, okay, like good luck with that. So, if the Obamas didn't think that it was going to be a thing, it's totally okay that I didn't think it was going to be a thing. So, and clearly now Michelle is like, it was a thing,
Right.
So did I ever think it was going to be like this? No, I still don't know how, and I don't think Lin nor anyone, else from that team ever thought it would be this big.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the fact that what this show has done for Broadway, for hip hop, for education, for, getting more people, different people interested in this kind of music, in this kind of art form, it's important, and it's a moment in time, and it's very much a part of our history now. And, we need to embrace that and amplify that even further. So the fact that now, because of Disney Plus, like so many more people can see it, we need to get even more people to see it. Because imagine the next Lin Manuel, who's sitting at home watching Disney Plus, who can now dream as a young person of color, like, wait, I can do this,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I totally agree. So they kept repeating the narrative that Hamilton was an immigrant who greatly affected the history of the United States. Then he's portrayed by Lin, whose father was an immigrant, right? So immigrant again. They even say immigrants, we get the job done in the play. So the musical is also intentional by hiring primarily non-white actors. Again, they wanted to make sure they reflected the diversity that's so valuable in this country. What did you all think of this? Did that resonate with you? Did it register while you're watching the play that this is groundbreaking? Like it's, so powerful, especially for the times that we live in, thinking about the role that immigrants played in shaping American history. I think Grace touched upon this a little bit earlier in what she was saying. And I think, and I was listening to actually I was reading what some people have written about the immigrant theme, and they talked about it was changing the negative connotation around the word immigrant, and that immigrant is not necessarily a bad word. So did any of this kind of resonate with you when you were watching the play, Dwight?
Well, yes, definitely, because oh my God, I'm trying not to be long-winded with this, but the whole essence of America is made up of a mixture of people. The first person to die for the Civil War was a Black person at Boston. No, a lot of people don't know that. Like that's what the whole Boston Tea Party and the whole thing that happened in Boston Massacre was a Black person that died first. This is a country made up or contributed by people that were not from here. And for it to be represented with people of different colors is bringing that idea home. Like, look, I know you want to whitewash how this whole land came to be, but this whole land came to be from a lot of people and a lot of people of different colors. So when you say America or the flag stands for this, the flag stands for all of us because we all made this. Mm-hmm. So I just love that a play of that nature brought it home where you don't, hey, don't picture them as colors, picture it as people that helped start a nation. And it's a whole bunch of people that did that.
Yeah.
So I've been a fan of Lin Manuel because his purpose, he's purposely doing that, making sure that Black and Latinos are represented in the Broadway world. So when he also wrote and produced In the Heights. So that's where I was first introduced to him. And even in that experience, it just touched me. Like, here's this guy that has purposely put on this stage that's normally predominantly white, all of these Black and Latino individuals. Again, it touched me in a way that I cannot explain. And I saw the preview of In the Heights. When it went to Broadway, I saw it. And then I saw it 3 times because it touched me that much. And I had a friend who was in the play as well. So, this is no surprise that he's going to bring the same vibe and energy and, so forth to Alexander Hamilton. And I remember watching like his different interviews and stuff talking about how he had a challenge selling it. People were like, you can't, I know you were successful with In the Heights. That was cool, but that was about In the Heights. Like you could do rap in that scenario, but you want to tell a piece of history using hip hop? Nah, son, you can't. Like, he had a hard time selling it from his interviews and so forth. And I could see that because, again, as Dwight was, noting, we are often erased from this country's history, or just sort of like, we're not even in the forefront. We're put way in the background. Like, we weren't a part of it. You know what I mean? So I applaud him for, 1, sticking to it. Like, no, I'm going to do this. And 2, doing it, period, in this way. Like, it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And I just felt like it was a homage to, black and brown.
Mm-hmm.
Lydia, I gotta say, when you were speaking, this is totally speaking to me, because my first introduction to Lin Manuel was also through In the Heights. And I'm Puerto Rican. So when I saw it come around, I was like, oh, this is perfect. It's Broadway. We're Puerto Rican. We're from Staten Island. No hate. Don't even start talking to me about Staten Island. Keep it to yourself. I don't want to hear it. But anyway, don't be talking about Staten Island. Anyway, my point is, we went and saw that as a family, because there's so few opportunities to see people of color represented in these situations, right? And the thing that really struck with me, and I laugh now when I read that first article about Hamilton, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then I heard a clip. I was like, oh, that's the guy from In the Heights. He will never be known as the guy from In the Heights now, of course.
Right.
But what really struck me is, our last song of the musical is "Who lives, who dies, who tells your story."
Yes.
And
yes.
over and over again, like Dwight said, like Lydia said, people of color, our stories aren't told. They are not shared. They are forgotten. They are purposely left out of history. And so here we have a very intentional and beautiful and creative way that says, we are going to tell your story. You are part of this nation as much as anyone else. And so this is how, people of color are, Black and brown people. We're telling your story. And this is how, these are the people that are telling your story. As American, as the person right next to you, doesn't matter what they look like, we're telling your story with faces that look like yours. So it really struck home for me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Grace, did you want to add anything before I ask the next question? Or okay, so let's talk about the scene, the story of tonight. And the song recounts a meeting which occurred in 1776 between Alexander Hamilton, John Lawrence, I'm going to mess up some names, Hercules Mulligan, and Marquis de Lafayette, right? So in the song, the 4 young revolutionaries declare their loyalty and fealty to the newly started revolution, right? So how many times do you get to see 4 men of color on a Broadway stage singing about friendship? Right. And a lot of, again, the underlying, the thing that kind of threads through the play, it's about giving access to a story, the story of America that people of color have been written out of for so long. And for me, watching Lin and Anthony and David, and I'm going to say this gentleman's name incorrectly, Okariti, play those characters and sing that song, I was actually just blown away. I've gone to see lots of Broadway shows, and to see these like strong, masculine men of color on stage singing it, again, another way that Lin Manuel was just breaking ground, just kind of breaking ground and playing these strong characters, these founding fathers. Did any of that touch you when you watched at least that scene, Dwight?
Yeah, you know what it made me think of? I was thinking first, I thought of how talented these people of color are. You hear these voices like Leslie Odom Jr., the Puerto Rican one. I'm sorry, I forget his name.
Yeah, D. Ramos. Yeah.
Yes, but the voices, and you think about like if you weren't in Rent or Lion King, they might have gotten one role in a play. With that much talent, only one. All these people talent got to fight for one role, and finally there's a play where there's 8 roles, there's 10 roles for you to shine, and you could see this talent, and for it to, I'm sorry, you see so many plays with just white faces, and like that's the whole thing that we're talking about. Like this is not how America is. So show that diversity, so they're able to see men of color playing the lead, singing their ass off, showing their talent, and they're playing white people. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the talent you were seeing. It's just so refreshing, and it's actually very sad that it took this long to happen on Broadway. Being honest.
Yeah, it was, and I'm glad you said that, Dwight, because it just, you start to focus on the story itself. Like for me, yes, proud that you had these strong Black men, here, they're super talented. But after a while, for me, it was just like, now I want to hear the story. I just want to hear them tell the story. I just totally forgot that it was men of color telling the story. That's how it should be. It shouldn't matter if a Black person does it, if a Latino person does it, if a white person does it, if an Asian person does it. Doesn't matter. Tell the story. You still get the same feeling. We're all human. So I love that after I could watch it and be interested in the story, hear and see how they tell this story, which was it's an important story to tell. It's a part of American history, So I was just really proud that, that here it was the stage that showed people of color telling an American history story. Yes, y'all, it can be done. We can do it too, So I was just proud for that.
Mm-hmm. So let's continue talking about the music, which is the play. The music is telling a story, right? This is 100% pure musical theater. So what was your favorite number in Hamilton and why? For me, mine is the song Satisfied, and the scene where Renee Elise Goldsberry, she plays Angelica Schuyler, first meets Alexander Hamilton. First, for me, that song is crazy. Her cadence is crazy. I mean, I would not have thought that someone whose background is musical theater could come with like a hip hop cadence the way she flowed. And I was watching it. I had to stand up and get closer to the TV screen so I could actually witness what was happening. And the other thing that was smart about it was the whole rewind.
Yes.
Like, are they rewinding? Like it looked as if they were literally rewinding on stage. And I was like, what am I watching? Like I was just, I'm kind of stumbling over my words because it was so smart. The song was written so well. It was sung / rapped so well. And the whole scene was it just blew me away. Grace, what was your favorite number in Hamilton and why?
I'm gonna cheat and say 3 different answers for very different reasons. My favorite number is Satisfied. I'll agree with you. Just Renee's performance. And Lin also says that it is his best song that he's ever written and he'll never top it. And I don't know if I agree that he'll never top it, but it is one of his best. So Satisfied, and just like, again, how it threads through the entire musical is so incredibly beautiful. My personal favorite, because it touches on my heart, is when Leslie Odom sings "The World Was Wide Enough." And when he sings "The World Was Wide Enough" for both Hamilton and me, every fiber of my being just wants to cry. Because it's a personal lesson, because the world every day, especially for people like us and people of color, we're only told that there are so many seats at the table. And for women too, like, we are so incredibly competitive, and we feel like in order for me to succeed, that my girlfriend over here can't succeed. So that message is something that I carry with me everywhere. Whenever I listen to the cast recording, it is very much like hey, the world is wide enough for me, that person, like, someone else does not have to lose for me to win. So that's a personal favorite. And then the last one is One Last Time, because I think Christopher Jackson has one of the best voices, like, ever. And that one has a special meaning for me because as part of the Hamil Drops project, 2018, I got to actually meet President Obama when he did his remix of One Last Time. And so that also makes me want to cry tears, because you have Christopher Jackson's like buttery voice singing "One Last Time," and then you have Obama's voice coming in reading Lin's part, and you're just like, oh, I miss you as president. Please come back.
Dwight.
Okay, so first of all, Satisfied is hands down the best song in the play, so I kind of exclude that. It's just remarkable. It's just
musical.
It's something else. Okay, but I'm a newbie to the play, so I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to give you 3. The first one, because it was the first one I got connected to, was Charlotte Sisters. I thought that was incredible, and I thought it was so New York. They was like Manhattan, New York. I love that. Then the other 2 might be because, like I said, I think Leslie Odom's voice is incredible. Is "Wait for It" and "The Room Where It Happens." Those are I can't get those out of my head. Those 2, "Wait for It," especially when he does that pregnant pause. Wait for it. It comes in like off beat. Those 3 songs are incredible to me. Those are my favorites.
Okay. Lydia.
I'm gonna go with y'all with Satisfied. That was how it was executed was just, just absolutely amazing, for lack of a better word. The other song that touched me, and I just thought it was so beautifully done, was Helpless. When Eliza was singing Helpless, and she was talking about her emotion and how she felt about meeting him and so forth. And I don't know, I just thought it was absolutely beautifully done. And I would have to say Leslie Odom Jr.'s "The World Is Wide Enough," I think it is. That's what Grace had mentioned. Again, almost brought me to tears, because it just speaks to us about how, yes, there's enough for everyone. We don't have to claw and clamor at each other. There's enough for everyone. And it spoke to his character as well, because he was in competition all the time with Hamilton. So that was very poignant, how he was singing that particular song, about "The World Is Wide Enough."
Lisa.
So before we go to my favorites, I have a lot. I'm sorry, Lydia. I'm sorry. I love Hamilton, but Helpless, there are 2 songs on the original Broadway recording that I skip. If I'm being real honest, this is a safe space. We can talk honestly. safe space. Helpless, and I'm gonna get so much crap for this, but what did I miss? Ooh. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. Just being honest. So, I mean, much love for you. I don't, have any love lost, but those two just don't do it for me.
Gotcha.
But my favorites, let's talk about something positive now. No, so the things that I like, without a doubt, of course, I'm going to, Satisfied is amazing. I was rapping that earlier today when I was making lunch, but the one that gets my heart is Wait For It. Just because I just feel for Burr's character, for the depiction of his story so much, and just that pain of feeling so controlled all the time, and he has to just kind of do his best all the time. And Leslie Odom Jr. is just amazing. So that's my favorite song in the musical. But my favorite piece that I really love how it's depicted is the last soliloquy when they are actually at their duel, and the bullet is the character that has haunted him throughout this whole time. There are multiple times, if you watch the performance, where the actress who's performing the role of the bullet goes right over his head multiple times. So Death is kind
I missed that. I gotta watch that.
Yeah, I mean, Death
is.
And what's cool is that when Philip is looking for Eker, and he talks to those ladies trying to find where he is, the character that plays Death is one of the ladies he talks to, so he's literally flirting with Death earlier in the performance. And that last part.
Lisa's a real fan.
I told you I'm a fan.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
That last part, the soliloquy, where he's saying that last iteration of, I imagine death so much it feels more like a memory. And he talks about his legacy and how everything stops. And at times the bullet starts to catch up and you hear the wind start coming. Like, this is actually it. And you realize, like, he's really at the end. And in real life, it would have been a second. But for him, he has all the time, that breath that he's always looking for time, right? Here's the one moment that he actually doesn't have any time left. And it just stretches out for him to be able to say all these things. And that moment where he's saying he can't wait to see all these people. And then he says, Eliza, my love, take your time. And then, he knows he's not going to see her. I'll see you on the other side. Literally just got goosebumps even just talking about it now. So while my favorite song in the musical is Wait For It, that just the way that's depicted, there are definitely times the choreography was just bananas. That was one of them in the Eye of a Hurricane, where they're doing all the set pieces and it looks like they're actually pausing a hurricane in the middle of it. The rewind and Satisfied. There's so many layers, man. I'm telling you. So those are my favorites for sure.
Yeah. Can I just say something really quick, Lorena?
Yeah, please.
With all of this goodness going around, the music, the production, the songs, how they're executed. I love anything history, so I enjoyed just seeing and hearing each character and what they were going through, the things that they felt, their individual stories, and again, like with Burr, he here it is, he intelligent. He was well known. He was, so forth. But here it is, Hamilton came onto the scene and he felt some kind of way about that. And there was a competition between them. And then even the Schuyler sisters, Angelica and Eliza, how Angelica was feeling Hamilton. You know what I'm saying? They had a thing. There was like heat and chemistry between them. But, she was like, all right, well, my sister's feeling her. So go ahead and introduce the two of them. I don't know if that happened, historically, but just the makeup of that, the individual stories and how each of them interacted, that I found fascinating, and how it was told and how it was written. It was absolutely fascinating.
So Hamilton is broken out into two acts, right? The first act covers Hamilton's arrival in New York City in 1776, his work as an aide to General George Washington during the American Revolution, and how he met and married Eliza Schuyler. The second act covers Hamilton's post-war work as the first Secretary of Treasury of the United States, his affair with Maria Reynolds, the death of his son Philip, and finally his own death in a duel with Aaron Burr, right? So Act 1 is all about the revolution and falling in love. And Act 2 is about dealing with loss off field in the mind and in politics. So with that in mind, what was your favorite act and why?
That's easy.
Go ahead, Dwight. Go ahead, Dwight.
That's easy. That's easy for me. Act 1. And I've struggled with this through the 6 times I watched it, trying to figure it out. But yeah, it's Act 1. Just the songs in that. There's 4 songs I love from Act 2. Act 1, I think every one. Like, I remember watching it for the first time and I was like, that song's incredible. No, that's the best song in the play. No, that's the best song in the play. No, that's the best. Like, literally, I was like, this cannot get any better. Like, what is going on? And I didn't experience that in the second act. So for me, Act 1 is it. And real quick, just talking about the nuances with the bullet. And I said this earlier, but I had to bring this up. The fact that every time they're rhyming and spitting hip hop, it's when they're talking about the revolution. So technically, hip hop is the voice of revolution in this play. I thought that nuance was that was incredible. I had to throw that out to the room. But yeah, Act 1 for me.
Mm-hmm. Lisa.
I don't know. You know, as you asked that question, I'm sitting here really thinking about it. Like, when I'm sitting around singing, which act am I singing? I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty even balance for me. I might have to go with Act 2 because I like to cry when Philip passes away. And, you know, when we talk about It's Quiet Uptown, the sobbing, oh my God. So I don't know. But it is pretty even. That's a tough one for me. I don't know.
Okay. Grace?
I think when it comes to what I'm singing, it's Act 1. But I feel like Act 1, no shade to Dwight, is like for children, it's the happy, it's the candy. Dwight's laughing at me.
Sounds like some shade, Grace.
I think Act 1 is like, you know, we're making it palatable, we're making it enjoyable, we're making it family friendly for the kids. And everything's go lucky, and it's a metaphor for life of like, it's your childhood phase. And Act 2 is very much the real adult grown up shit. And maybe it's because of COVID, maybe it's because I've had too much time to think about this or whatever, but like Act 2 is what makes you feel something and makes you leave watching either the film or the musical in the theater. Act 2 is what like punches you in the gut and teaches you some lessons about life. It literally teaches you to have compassion. It teaches you about fidelity or infidelity. It teaches you how to be a better parent or a more present parent. It teaches you how to play nice in the sandbox. It literally teaches you to get along with other people. Otherwise, literally people end up dead. It teaches you like about leadership. It teaches you so much. It teaches you about like how life is so short and you have such a limited amount of time that you should be thinking about your legacy. And again, maybe it's because of COVID and we're all like feeling a certain way and we're feeling sensitive, but I am so mindful of, man, what do I want my legacy to be? Because I know Lynn's got this, like, he's got his legacy all taken care of.
Right.
You know, it's funny. I'm thinking maybe because of COVID, maybe that's why I liked Act 1. I needed some light fare. Like, yeah, I need to think. I don't want to get deep. But I will tell you, Act 2 had the most emotional renaissance because it's Quiet Uptown. That's the first time I was like kind of slightly emotional. I was like, wow, that's deep. Like losing a family. Like, so it hit emotionally. I'll give you that. Definitely.
Lydia?
Yeah, I am with Lisa and Grace. Sorry, Dwight. It's even for me, but it's evenly balanced. I love both acts, but Act 2, you know, I love a good story. You know, I love to get into a character's emotion. What were they thinking? How were they feeling? Because you connect to that. And Act 2 is that, like Grace is saying, it's all the emotions, it's everything. You get into Hamilton more, what he thought, how he felt, the issues that he had with, staying connected to his family, and how that played out with him getting involved with that woman, Maria Reynolds, and that scandal that, took place, and how he just sort of started to change from that. So Act 2 for me spoke, I felt that a little bit more. It was just beautifully done, and even watching it on, TV, I didn't think that I would be as feeling about it or in my emotions about it, but I really was watching it again. So yeah, it's evenly balanced for me, but Act 2 was a little bit more for me.
Yeah,
I do.
Go ahead, Grace.
No, sorry, Rena. I do agree with Dwight that the music, like the poo, poo, poo,
yeah,
hit, the music was much better in Act 1, for sure. I do agree with Dwight on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I think
and that might be because y'all saw it live too. Live, the story part had to have been incredible watching it. So Act 2 probably made you feel something like sitting there.
For me, but Dwight, I first time saw it was on the TV, and I loved Act 1. Like Act 1 had me like, I'm not throwing away my shot. I was getting it, right? But Act 2 for me was it was about the maturity of Hamilton, right? We see him mature into being a better person, right? He learned some lessons about life. And by the time they get to his quiet uptown, I'm like, oh my God, I'm about to cry. Like he's really finally appreciating his wife. She forgives him for his affair, for how he did her dirty by releasing the affair out there to clear his own name. And it was just, for me, it was about his maturity. It was about forgiveness. And it was just about seeing him come into his own. And he really felt something and changed as a man when his son died, when Philip died. And that just really, really touched me emotionally, even from watching it on the TV. I was truly, truly, truly touched. I'm going to go to one of the comments. Davina Lopez says, yes, the music in Act 1 is amazing, but she loves the battles in Act 2. And our final question for tonight, what is your takeaway after watching Hamilton? For me, it has made me, and Dwight's already touched on it, but it's made me more interested in early American history connected to the founding of this country. Because before I was like, I don't care about no damn Alexander Hamilton. Like, for real. Let me talk, Harriet Tubman, okay? But, just the play has really, because it kind of, I want to say equalized, but it made history accessible, right? And fun, right? You talked about Schoolhouse Rock, Dwight, and it's made me want to learn more. Like I started looking up Aaron Burr, looking up Alan, because I was like, who? And I started looking up all these people and wanting to know more about the history of my country, right? America. And so what's your takeaway after watching Hamilton? I'll just throw it out to anybody. Go ahead.
Okay. I got to jump in because this is one of the things I had taped for Cindy earlier. My main takeaway was, look what hip hop do. Look at what we as a people, we as a cultural people do.
Yes.
Look, I'm from the Bronx. I've seen we created this art form that is such a chameleon that we could eat in any space. I seen hip hop R&B, hip hop house, hip hop EDM, hip hop country. Now I'm seeing hip hop Broadway, and every time we put our culture in something, it dominates. I'm just so proud of us as a people and what we create. I mean, this art form is the ultimate chameleon and the ultimate testament to our artistry and our soul as a people. I just love watching it dominate every era, that every crevice that it goes into. That's what I walked away. I was so proud of us. Like, wow, look at what we do. We conquer Broadway from the street in the Bronx.
Yeah, and one of the comments Davina Lopez said, it made her excited to see whose story we can tell next to music. And as a performer, it made her super excited to see what she can possibly, super excited that I can see more parts and opportunities for herself.
Yes.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah. The takeaway for me is, as I said, I'm a history person. I love learning about history and people from the past. And it was just really great learning about Hamilton's story again, but also learning about Burr. And just really being reminded of how much Hamilton birthed so many things, the foundation for this country. Just learning about that even more and delving into that a little bit more. Even reading up on him and stuff like that. One of the fun facts that I came across was saying that he was one of the first major politicians to be involved in a sex scandal. And I'm like, oh my God, what a thing to be first for. You know what I mean? That's crazy. That's crazy that he was one of the first, he started it all. So I just thought that was interesting. And I love little facts like that. So I walked away with just kind of being excited about learning more about Hamilton and the characters back then. But I also, Grace had mentioned it made me think about my legacy, because Eliza talked about that, about Hamilton. And even though, he he cheated on her and was involved in that scandal, she forgave him and still was motivated to, just continue to build this legacy for him and tell his story. And it made me think about myself, oh my God, well, what's my legacy? What is it? What am I going to, what imprint am I going to leave in this world and so forth? So yeah, those were the two takeaways for me.
Okay, Lisa.
So I told y'all from the beginning, I'm a huge Broadway fan. And when I was in college, I was actually a dual major. And for my English degree, my whole senior thesis was talking about Broadway as a medium for communication. So how you can use this as a way to communicate. And so right now, there's nothing that really exemplifies that more than Hamilton. The way that, Broadway's been able to communicate history and, it gets people interested to kind of fact check the actual musical or just to more broadly have a better understanding of history. So I'm excited that it's really opened the door and kind of brought down some of that stigma maybe people have had about Broadway or, oh, that's not for me. I don't like that type of stuff. Like you said, Lorena, coming in, you're like, I don't want to hear all this music, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm open to it, right? And that might be a venue to being open to some other things too. So I'm excited just in general for Broadway and the way that it's kind of continued to make it accessible and make it okay and kind of cool to get into some of this. That might be overstating it. But, and honestly, I'm just really excited to be able to see that representation. I think about my sons and my stepdaughter and being able to say, when they get older, right, you can see your face depicted here in these areas of strength, in these areas and roles that are important. And, we reiterate that at our house, but that it's now being broadly put out there. And so I'm really glad to see that that's paving the way, that it's not going to be so standout in the future, that we won't be able, we won't have to say this is such a singular thing, right? Because it's making it acceptable and profitable and exciting so that people can see, yes, there is benefit to this. So I'm happy of what it opens the door to.
Grace?
I think my key takeaway, in addition to what everyone else has said, I echo those sentiments, is how relevant this story from 1776 and, from that century is so relevant and applicable to us in 2020. And I say that on so many levels of, again, not only did this film come a year early, but right on time, the weekend of this nation's quote unquote birthday. We're at a time when we are literally in the middle of a revolution. And, you know, in 1776, they're breaking off from King, you know, of the UK, like, can't even begin to just like make the correlations of just like, yo, we're fighting for independence. You know, we're fighting for our right to do things differently. It makes me think of just like the election this year. It also just makes me think of just like how overall we are being forced to face ourselves as human beings and evaluate the kind of character that we have. And that's something that I think that you see through Hamilton, through Burr. And lastly, like, I think after the film was just trending and being talked about so much, there was a blip, you know, where people were talking about canceling Hamilton. And that was a real thing. And by the way, going into the release, there was a thought of like, oh my gosh, please, like, we need to read this landscape, like, because this decision came really right before George Floyd. And so the marketing of the film, the music, all that stuff sort of shifted in the middle of all of this because we were so mindful of not just what was going on in the news cycle, but the correlation to people who were slave owners. Right. And, but ultimately, one of the reasons I so proudly stood behind this beautiful piece of art was that, like, I felt like it was a story that needed to be told from a different perspective. And I think people need to see this story from a different angle, but also take away some of the key lessons of like, man, we all really need to look at our character. And that's something I mainly took away from it. And it's something even today, like, you know, years later and having seen it multiple times, like, it really, really challenges me on a faith level of how I live my life.
Very deep. So what we do here at the watch party is we rate from 1 to 5. 5 is the most you can give. 1 is like at the bottom. So we rate what we just reviewed. So let's rate the Hamilton film. Me, I give it a 5. 5, 5, 5. There's no way I could give it any less than 5. Lydia?
I agree. 5 all around. 5, 5, 5.
Lisa?
5, hands down. Absolutely.
All right, Grace?
5.
Dwight?
5, the best piece of art I've seen in the last 10 years.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we want to thank Lisa, Grace, and Dwight for being our special guests tonight at the watch party of the Hit List Podcast Network and this Hamilton special edition. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Like, there were some problems, I guess, with Facebook. Facebook was hating on us and you couldn't get on the thing. And I'm glad you joined through YouTube or some other way or Twitch or whatever it is. But thank you for joining us tonight and have a beautiful rest of your evening.